For the last couple of years, especially over the last few months, I've been trying to put people on to how insidious the Democratic Party is. Because things in this country are worse than anyone could possibly imagine, worse than I can even imagine. And there's this fantasy that millions of people in this country believe, which is that if we just vote for some Democrats, then they'll fix all the problems and the country will be so much better off. I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. The Democratic Party is just as corrupt as the Republican Party. They are just as in the pocket of big corporations and millionaires and billionaires as the Republican Party. And they are working against the interest of the regular working class, middle class, poor people in this country just as much as the Republicans are. And for all those people who desperately need change, radical change in this country, and who are depending on policies like single-payer Medicare for all system, or UBI, or free college, if for anybody who wants those things, or ending the wars, or getting money out of politics, the only way that's going to happen is through public pressure and forcing the hand of politicians with massive civil unrest like what we've been seeing with these protests in every major city against police brutality. Or they have to be afraid that enough of their constituents are paying attention and are outraged that the next time there's an election, they're going to lose their job. That's the only way you're going to force politicians to go against the will of their political donors and to actually do their job and be public servants and work on behalf of the people. They need to fear that the civil unrest is going to get so out of hand, it's going to shut down major cities indefinitely before they take any of our policy demands seriously. And right now, when it comes to organizing direct action and making demands for a people's bailout and actual economic relief for the people, nobody is doing a better job than Nick Brana, who used to work in Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign. Now he's organizing for the movement for a People's Party. They've been organizing peaceful, nonviolent demonstrations outside of the offices and the homes of dozens of lawmakers, people in the House and the Senate leadership, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Steny Hoyer, Kevin McCarthy. On Saturday was their second day of action, and they plan on continuing to organize these direct actions until we get a people's bailout. Well, Nick Brana went on the Jimmy Dore show to talk about what the movement for the People's Party, what they're doing. And he mentioned a conversation he had with Pramila Jayapal, superstar of the left, Justice Democrat, co-chair of the Progressive Caucus in the House, the largest voting bloc, the largest caucus in the entire House, allegedly a huge supporter of Medicare for all. While Nick Brana and some other people from the movement for a People's Party with Pramila Jayapal, and Nick Brana shared some of the details of the conversation with Jimmy Dore, and it is just stunning. But before I show you the clip, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about the dire situation. At least 50 million people have filed for unemployment since this crisis started back in March. There has never been a time when unemployment has been this high ever in U.S. history. At least 28 million people are at risk of eviction by October, at risk of being thrown out of the house and their credit destroyed by October because they lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic and the terrible response from our government. At least 50 million people, the number could really be as high as 100 million people in this country who have no health insurance. And the number keeps rising dramatically with the more people who are losing their jobs throughout this crisis. And even before this, 40,000 people were dying every single year because they couldn't afford basic health care. That was happening every single year in the United States because of our private for-profit health insurance system. That number is 0 in every other modern country in the world. Every year, 500,000 people were going bankrupt because they couldn't afford to pay their medical bills in the United States. That number was 0 in every other modern country because they have government-funded healthcare programs. This is the state of affairs in the United States, right? This is the level of crisis that people are dealing with in their everyday lives here in this country. Knowing how desperate the situation is, look at Pramila Jayapal's pathetic response when she was asked if she's going to do anything for these people. So I have the clip. It's about 4 minutes. This is really stunning. So please watch the whole clip and then we'll come back and break it down.
Yesterday, where she said, I agree with the demands, but I'm effectively so burned after my experience in trying to push something for the HEROES Act, trying to push for something more progressive, that I'm not going to take a stand this time. That was our demand. Our demand was, Congresswoman Jayapal, you are the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Whip your caucus. Get the squad together. Actually come together and take a stand. Because you know what's happening? What's happening now is that corporations want something again.
Yes.
It's the only reason we're back discussing another stimulus is because corporations want their exemption, from coronavirus lawsuits. Okay, so Wall Street wants something again. So now we're back at the table. But guess what that means? Is that we have leverage. We can deny them that. That's what the Democrats are theoretically supposed to do. That's what the progressives are theoretically supposed to do. They're supposed to say, no, you want these exemptions. You want any form of bailout. You want any form of help. You want more PPP, more paycheck protection money that's going to go to big business instead of small business. Well, guess what? You got to come to the table on Medicare for all, a basic income, defunding the police, rent and mortgage relief. You got to cover payroll. No. They're not willing to do any of it. They're not willing to take. And in fact, she didn't just say it to us in the meeting. She said it before that, the day before. I found out afterwards that it was reported by Intercept that she said it, in fact, to the press that the progressives in Congress have drawn 0 red lines. They've made 0 demands for the upcoming stimulus bill.
Nick, I mean, it's worse than I could ever had imagined. The people like Representative Jayapal, at the speed which they were sell out, AOC, Bernie, every Democrat and independent. It's just jaw dropping, and there's no one fighting for us. Never. And corporations are coming back for another round of raping of our economy, and they're going to go along with it again. And Bernie's going to go along with it again because they're going to be told to. And I turn on the YouTube and I watch my other progressive hosts, and I'm going to see how pissed off they are about this and how much they're going to pressure their progressive sweethearts. 0. Nothing. Silence. Nothing. Every video after video telling you how you have to vote for Biden. Do you have any comment on that? I mean, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, Nick, to hear you report back from your meeting with Representative Pramila Jayapal. I'm at a loss for words.
So, to make sure we all heard what I heard, at the very beginning of that clip, Nick Brown talks about the conversation he had with Pramila Jayapal. And she says, yeah, I agree with the policy demands that the movement for People's Party are making. I support them, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to use my power to do anything. I won't spend an ounce of political capital to do anything to make sure those policies get passed into legislation. And the reason she gives for that is that she tried to do something good when Nancy Pelosi was trying to pass the terrible HEROES Act. She tried to do something good and it didn't work out for her. So therefore she's throwing in the towel and she's tapped out. That's unbelievable. And let me remind you what her big bold stance on the HEROES Act was. Again, co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, the largest voting bloc in the entire House. When Nancy Pelosi was passing the HEROES Act that had specific carve-outs, billions of dollars to be allocated to bail out lobbyists, corporate lobbyists in Washington, D.C. That was the top priority in Nancy Pelosi's HEROES Act. In that HEROES Act, she had a blank check for COBRA, technically what's supposed to be insurance for people who've lost their employer-based private insurance. COBRA is entirely unaffordable. The monthly premiums are even higher than whatever your premium that you had at your job, and you aren't even getting the income of your job to pay for it. So COBRA is a giant fucking scam for the private health insurance industry. Nancy Pelosi, in a time of crisis, global pandemic, before she provides healthcare to the people, she put in fucking billions of dollars to prop up COBRA and a bunch of other gratuitous, unnecessary corporate handouts to millionaires and billionaires. She wanted to put a tax cut, a state and local tax cut for millionaires and billionaires in that HEROES Act. And Pramila Jayapal, apparently leading the charge for progressives in the House, her big pushback against the HEROES Act wasn't even to whip votes and say, hell no, we're not voting for this. This bill is insufficient. It doesn't go nearly far enough. And it's yet again another corporate bailout. She didn't do that. And here are our demands for what should be in any legislation that comes out of the House in response to the coronavirus and economic crisis. She didn't do that. Instead, she just vaguely whispered some concerns she might have had with the some things that were priorities in the bill, and she wrote a weak sauce, mildly worded letter to Nancy Pelosi and asked her not to kill the bill, not to take all the corporate handouts out of the bill and actually do something for people. No, she just asked Nancy Pelosi to hold off on the bill, to pause the bill for a little bit, and let's hopefully get back to the table and we could figure out something better for the people. And her only real policy demand that she had in the HEROES Act is a policy that I agree with, but it doesn't go anywhere near addressing having a holistic approach to addressing the economic crisis we're dealing with. And the policy demand that she had was to have the government basically subsidize payroll for all businesses and companies in the country so that we don't have this out of control surging unemployment number. Everybody still has their job and everybody's still getting a paycheck and businesses aren't going bankrupt. That was Pramila Jayapal's proposal. I agree with it. But that was the one policy demand that she wanted to put in the HEROES Act. Nothing about Medicare for all, nothing about debt cancellation, nothing about a rent freeze or subsidized rent cancellation or subsidized rent. None of that. No UBI, no. So after that pathetic stand that Pramila Jayapal claimed to have taken against Nancy Pelosi and the corporate Democrats when they were passing the HEROES Act, now she's all tied up. She's done. She's exhausted. She can't do this anymore. She's throwing in the towel, and she's saying that she won't even try because she was so burned from the last time she tried to do something good and it didn't go her way. Wow, what a fucking fighter! What a revolutionary! You can tell how much she cares about the people. I mean, this is just pathetic. I don't know how anybody in independent media can find a kind word to say about any of these elected progressives. Any one of them. AOC, Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders. And I don't know how anyone in new media is still coming out here doing videos praising these people. Is they aren't doing a fucking thing to change anything, to make anything better. That's what they're admitting. But for some reason, a lot of left new media is just continues to give them the benefit of the doubt, continues to give them a pass for their inexcusable behavior. It's inexcusable that this is the position of the highest ranking elected progressives in this country. It's disgusting that this is the position that they're taking. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to continue to sit here and let the corporate Democrats and the Republicans pass corporate bailout after corporate bailout. I'm going to allow them to cut the measly benefits that they decided to give people when this all started. And I'm not going to do a goddamn thing about it. And then since the people left in new media is going to lay down on the job, they're going to get fucking rolled, and they're going to go along with and do propaganda for all these elected progressives. You have so many people in their audience. Anytime anybody brings up the fact that, what is a fact now, that they have all sold us out and that they're all working on behalf of the Democratic establishment and the corporate interest in this country. When you bring that up to some people in the audience, you get a whole bunch of, oh, come on, man, you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. They're trying so hard. They're working so hard. They have to fight against the majority of corporate Democrats, and then they have to fight against the Republicans too. It's so hard for them to get some wins like that. Well, by their own admission, by the words of Pramila Jayapal, they aren't doing anything. What you see is what you get. There's nothing going on behind the scenes. There is no elaborate plan. There is no strategic organizing to get Medicare for all, to get UB. They have given up on that. They have given up on that, and they're going to tell you to go vote for Joe Biden and act like that's going to improve your life. Act like Joe Biden doesn't have Larry Summers waiting in the wings to come in and fucking pull one over on us like he did in 2008 when we were in the last economic crisis. They're going to tell you to vote for Joe Biden as if that's going to improve your life in any way. As Joe Biden's telling everybody he's going to veto Medicare for all, while we're at the height of a global pandemic, while we are the global epicenter of a deadly pandemic, Joe Biden's going out there telling you, I'm not going to give you health care. And the elected progressives are going to tell you, well, we have no plan to get it for you, so I guess we have no choice but to vote for Joe Biden, because he ain't going to do shit for you either. This is stunning. Stunning. We are a lot worse off than people will have you believe. The elected progressives are no better than the corporate Democrats at this point. They just aren't. You can point to some rhetorical differences and some tweets that they had about Medicare for all and some nice things that they were saying about populism and ending corruption and stuff like that. But in practice, they aren't much better. They aren't going to do a goddamn thing to improve anybody's life. They aren't going to do anything for the 28 million people who are facing eviction by October, before the election even happens. And there is no plan but to tell people, go vote for Joe Biden, go vote for Democrats, vote blue no matter who. That's what all the elected progressives have for you. And by their own words, I'm going to say it again, they are doing nothing behind the scenes. What you see is what you get.